everybody, welcome to part 2 of our series on Quick Measure Pro external tool. This is part of the Enterprise DNA Power Tools suite created by Greg Deckler to speed development of your reports and automate a lot of common functions. So if you haven't already, I would definitely recommend watching part 1 of this, where I talked about how to use the out-of-the-box quick measures in the tool. And today what we're going to do is we're going to dive in and show you how to create your own custom measures. But before I do that, I want to cover one thing that I forgot to mention in the prior video. And what that is if we go into the Quick Measure Pro tool, what you'll see is there's in these 200 tools, there's a lot of them that are pretty straightforward in terms of what they do. Polar to Cartesian, running product, simple aggregation, subtraction. Those are pretty intuitive. But then there are a number of them that, Jacques Barra, Cthulhu, Blowout, that it's not clear what those do. And so what Greg has done, that, for example, Cthulhu is one of his most popular ones on the Microsoft Quick Measures gallery. And what you do here is you can just go into DAX, and then in the notes, what you'll see is a description of what that quick measure does, and actually with a link to the gallery. So this is a resetting counter based on an index column, and we can jump into the quick measure gallery link, and you can see that this one has 25,000 views. It's got an extensive description. Here's all the DAX required, some additional links. So you can use this as a reference to better understand the ones that are not immediately intuitive. So I wanted to show you that. So if we jump back in, now what we want to do is we want to create our custom quick measures. And one of the best ways to do that, if we go back into Power BI, for those of you who are Enterprise DNA members, you've got access to another tool which is incredible in its own right, which is the Analyst Hub. And one of the best things about the Analyst Hub is it's got these code repositories. So you've got a DAX repository, M code, raw code, Python, R. And what I've done, and what many of us have done, have been to collect our common DAX measures. So you can see for me, I've got 33 DAX measures that I use quite frequently. And then what you can also do is you can go to the community, and there's 367 DAX measures that different people have contributed. And you can take any of those and save those you can open that and save those into your own library. But for now, what I want to do is say, okay, here are 2 measures. So let's take a look at this one. This is the simpler of the 2, what I call my top end ranking measure. And what this does is this just takes a number of elements, in this case top 5, and it ranks. Here I've got ranked based on city and total sales. And if it's within the top 5, it returns the total sales, and if not, it returns a blank. And so this is helpful, except for the fact that it's tied to city and total sales and top 5. But what if I wanted to make this more generalizable and have it so that I could take any element, rank it by any measure, and do any number of top n? And so what we can do is we can take this code and copy it. And let's go into Quick Measure Pro, and let's create our own quick measure, our own top end pattern quick measure. And the first thing we do, if you've never created your own quick measures before, is you want to create a JSON template file, and you just hit create. And let's call this one, I've already got one for my own quick measures, but let's call this sample quick measures. And we'll just save that. And you can save it in any directory. I just tend to save it in my C:temp directory, just make it easy to find. So I save that. And then what you can always do is you can go back and set, if you've got multiple ones, if, for example, this is the one, the Brian quick measure is the one I use regularly. If after this demo I want to go back and reset that to my normal one, I can do that. But let's now set this one, our sample quick measures, as our active one. So after we've properly set our JSON file for our custom measures, what we want to do is go to this custom section, and it'll say custom measure demo, and we want to click on new. And what we're going to get is this new measure template, and it's going to look kind of long and daunting initially, but it's actually going to make quite good sense in a moment. But before we dive in on this, what we want to do is go back to our measure in the Analyst Hub and take a closer look at this. So what we want to think about is, what are the elements of this that we want to templatize? What do we want to be able to vary in the future to make this more flexible? And I can see 3, potentially 4 things that we want to vary. So the first is definitely the items to rank. So we may not always want to rank city. We may want to rank customers. We may want to rank regions. We may want to rank products. The second thing is our measure. So we're ranking on the basis of total sales. That could be average sales. It could be max sales. Could be number of sales. So we're definitely going to want to vary that. And then the other one that's obvious is the number of elements that we want to keep. So here we've got 5. We could make that 3. We could make it 10. So that's definitely going to be something we want to vary. And then theoretically, we could also vary this descending and make that ascending if we wanted to. I think for now, for the sake of simplicity, let's keep that always as descending. So let's copy this code and jump back into our quick measures. So what we want to do here is we want to first pick an aggregation label. So you never want to have a naked column, so we're just going to take max here, and then column label, and we'll call this our items to rank. And this could be our city or our customers or whatever, but for the sake of placeholder for now, let's use city. And we'll select OK. And now parameters is going to be, our parameter label is going to be the number of items to rank. And we'll use a default here of 5. And we'll check that one to keep. And then we'll have another aggregation label. And in this case, it's mainly going to be, this is going to be rank on basis of. And this is going to be a measure like total sales or average sales or max sales. It could also be a column, but in this case, we're going to choose a measure. And let's choose total sales for now. Okay, and now what we can also do is we can also go to tooltips. And so if we wanted to say, like on our parameter label tooltip, say like enter a whole number. And you can put whatever instructions you want for the different tooltip labels. And you can see now when, oh, here we go. Number of items to rank, enter a whole number. Okay, so now we'll hit done. And what it gives us is, it gives us the keywords that we can use in our ranking, and it sets up some variables for us. And we're not actually going to use these variables. We're going to build this out custom. So let's paste in our code and start replacing. So what we've got here is we've first got the items to rank, and that's going to be basically our column 1 here, if you remember what we selected. So what we want is this column, and we'll copy that and replace that in here. Now the next thing we want to do is replace this total sales measure. And so we can either replace that manually, or what Greg has done is he's put a nice search and replace in here. And so we can take and we can just look for all instances of total sales and replace those with, in this case, it's that column 1 name. And the reason is for measures. We saw before when it was columns we used this column designator, but for measures the notation is such that you don't want to put the table of the measure table and you just want to put the measure. And so when you've got the column 1 here, this breaks it down into table name and then column name, or in this case measure name. And so what we want to do is just copy this portion that will return only the measure portion. And we'll paste that in and we'll replace all. And you'll see that in red now that's going to replace the total sales with whatever measure we choose. So the last thing we have to do is just replace this parameter with the param. And now let's do a little cleanup on this. Since this is going to be a permanent measure in our file, we want it to look good. So let's take the measure name, put that up here. Let's close this. And what I typically like to do is always have my last variable be what I want to return. So this is the result. Okay, that's looking good. And then we'll just say return result. And we can take now and look at if we hit the DAX button, it'll flip back and forth between the DAX and the raw. And we can see that it properly replaces all of the flexible designations with what we've chosen here. And so that's exactly what you want to see when you've got this done right. And so we can take these variables out, clean that up. And what we can also do if we wanted to is we could take these keywords out, but I typically like to leave them in, just because if I'm going to modify this in the future potentially, I like to have those keywords available. So one thing we can do here though is we can update the metadata a little bit. So this is a brief description. And we can add additional metadata here. We can, if we like to put our measures in folders, we can do that. We can hide it if we want to do that for some reason. But I think this is pretty much what we want now. So we can say create custom, and you'll see measure definition created, and we've now got a top ranking pattern in our custom file. And so if we click on that, we can now use this just in the way we did in the intro video. So if we take and let's say we want to, instead of city, we want to do, let's say customer names. We want to rank our customers. And let's say instead of 5, we want to do our top 7. And instead of total sales, we want to do it based on average sales. And now what we can do is hit the DAX, and we can shorten this a little bit just to say average sales, top end ranking, and then create. And what we can now do is we can go to Power BI, and what we see here is now we've got that average sales top end ranking and just set up exactly the way we'd specified in our quick measure. And if we take and we, let's say, create a bar chart, we can now take and just drop that measure in here and drop customer names in, and it filters the top 7 based on our top 7 customers. And so what we can do, if we go back to quick measures, we can now take a look at that in a different way. And let's say now what we want to do is we want to go back and do let's say products. We can do product name, and we can rank the top 5, and we can do that based on total sales. So we go to DAX, and we'll just shorten this, product name, top ranking. Total sales. Hit create. And now when we go back, I put that into, didn't change the table to measures, so we can just move that right here to measures. And now what we can do is we can take and let's take customer names out, and let's put our products and product name. And you see now that we've got our top 5 products based on total sales. So you can see how powerful this is in terms of being able to permanently capture your most used measures in a really flexible way. And what I want to do now is just, if that all makes sense, then you're good to go. But what I wanted to do was to run through one more example, just because I think this this replacement methodology is, once you get the hang of it, it's quite simple, but it does take a little bit of time and planning. So why don't we run through just one more example. So what I've got here is another measure in my Analyst Hub archive, which is one that I use for conditional formatting, that conditionally formats by highlighting the highest and the lowest value in a field. And so what we can do is let's copy this code and let's make a quick measure out of it. So we'll go into quick measures, and we will go to that custom measure demo, and let's create a new one. And if we go back and look at the code, what we can see is we've got, in this case, we've got a little bit more complexity. We've got 5 things we want to replace. So we've got the period that we want to select over. We've got the sort field, because in an all selected, you've got to select both the field itself and the sort field. We've got the measure that we want to highlight, the measure of the column, and then we've got the hex code, or the named color that we want to use for the high value and for the low value. So what we're going to have here is we're going to have an aggregated column, another aggregated column, another aggregated column for the measure, and then 2 parameters. So let's put that together in the quick measures. So what we're going to want is, and whenever you choose a column, you're going to want to pick an aggregator. And typically what I do is I pick, I just use maximum. It's not going to matter in this case. And so what we're going to want is we're going to want the column label, in this case, to be period. And then the next aggregator we're going to want is period sort. So this is the sort column. And then the third that we're going to want is going to be our measure. And this is going to be, we can just call this one value, because this is going to be the field value over which we're going to do the conditional formatting. And now the next thing we want to do is we want to pick our two parameters. And what we could do is we could go up here and pick this parameter, but we want to keep the order such that we're choosing the fields first and then the parameters. So typically what I like to do is keep the parameters at the bottom. So we'll check this one off, and this is going to be the high color. And let's say that the default is going to be light blue. And then for the next parameter, and this is going to be the low color, and the default for this will, let's say, will be pink. And because these are text fields, we'll be able to include both named colors and hex codes if we want. So we'll click done, and I typically take these variables out, and now what we can do is call this conditional formatting highlight high low, and we'll go back to Analyst Hub and copy our code. And now what we need to do is just replace the fields with our flexible designations. So the first one here, we'll use the find, is going to be our dates, month, and year. And we're going to dates, month, and year. Control C. Whoop. Okay, and we're going to replace that with our first column right here. And let's do replace all. Okay, that's looking good. So now what we want to do is replace dates, month, and year for our sort column. And we're going to replace that with our column 1. Replace all. Okay. And now our total sales we're going to replace with And if you remember from the previous example, instead of replacing with the column name, we're going to replace with the measure portion of the column name. So let's copy this. Paste that. Replace all. And now the last thing we have to do is just replace this with this one with Pt.2. And this one with Pt.3. Okay, and now let's close this. And let's flip back to our DAX. And we can see, oh, okay, the reason being here, so this is right, we just didn't choose our columns. And so what we can do is we can choose those now. So period, let's say month and year. And period sort is going to be month and year. We are going to have our choose column here be total sales. And then the one other thing I noticed is that in our template for the parameters, we need to put these parameters in quotes just so that it knows that these are text fields. So if we do that and then hit done, and we look back at our DAX, and we've got that now in quotes, and we say create. Let's just change the name here so that we don't duplicate. So CF-ILO2, and then create. And now, if we go back into Power BI, what we'll see is we should see a CF highlight high-low 2. And now what we can do is, let's get rid of this, and let's take a table with our month and year. And our total sales. And now let's go in and conditionally format the background color. And we'll use field value. And we're going to base that on the quick measure that we just developed. So CF highlight high-low 2. And we can see that it formats perfectly according to what we had developed in the quick measure. That if we sort by total sales, we will see that the highest gets the blue highlight and the lowest gets the pink highlight. And so we can go back at any point and do that based on month or quarter, and instead of total sales we can do average sales. And so I hope you see the power in this in terms of basically taking a few minutes each time you implement a measure in a report that you use frequently, and just kind of build that into your quick measures custom. And so basically at that point what you have to do is just write that measure once and then use it dozens or even hundreds of times in the future by just clicking on the columns and the parameters you want to add. So as I say, I hope you find that helpful and useful. If you have any questions, feel free to shout at me in the forum or LinkedIn. As always, thanks for watching, and thanks very much to Greg Deckler for designing and implementing just an incredible set of tools. So we'll be back next week to look at one more of the two remaining that we haven't touched on. So we'll be looking at the Conductor Pro tool for controlling your external toolbar. So look forward to seeing you there, and thanks again for watching.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to Enterprise DNA TV. If you enjoyed the content covered in this particular tutorial, please throw the video a like. It really helps us and we really appreciate it. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Enterprise DNA TV channel. We have a huge amount of content coming out all the time from myself and a range of content creators, all dedicated to improving the way that you use Power BI and the Power Platform. Lastly, check out Enterprise DNA's website. Plenty of resources and further learning that you can access very easily. All the best. Take care.